Put the contract down, Mr. Cole. Min-Jae's voice was barely above a whisper, but it silenced every breath in the room. Darius Cole froze mid-sentence, his rehearsed smile cracking at the edges. The investors shifted in their leather chairs. Someone's water glass trembled. I said. Kai rose slowly from his seat, and the dragon tattoo coiling up his neck seemed to move with him. Put it down. And in the corner of the room, a waitress in a white uniform held a bottle of vintage wine against her chest like a shield, her heart slamming against her ribs, knowing that everything that happened next was her fault. Or rather, her doing. Hours earlier, Nyla Carter had been invisible, and she had preferred it that way. Before we dive into how a waitress in the wrong room at the wrong time managed to unravel a $1 million deception at the heart of Seoul's most dangerous empire. If you're new here, hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Whether you're in New York, London, Toronto, Tokyo, or anywhere in between, we want to know you're here. Now let's get into it. The Orchid Sky Suite occupied the entire 42nd floor of the Hansung Tower, and on a clear Seoul morning, its floor-to-ceiling windows made the city below look like a circuit board powering itself into the future. Everything inside the suite had been chosen to communicate one thing: that the man who controlled this room controlled everything beneath it. Min-Jae stood at the window for exactly 45 seconds before the investors arrived. Not because he needed to think, because he had already thought. The 45 seconds were theater. Deliberate, calculated theater. In his world, the man who appeared to be waiting was never actually waiting. He was simply the last one to sit down. He was 36 years old and had never raised his voice to end a conversation. He had never needed to. His dark suit was immaculate. No pocket square, no tie pin, nothing that could be grabbed in close quarters. The dragon tattoo began just above his left collarbone and spiraled upward, its tail curving behind his ear. People who saw it for the first time inevitably looked too long. That was also deliberate. His chief of staff, a lean man named June, entered through the side corridor. They're here, Mr. Levin's team. 7 of them. The translator is already set up. Darius Cole. Yes, sir. Kai turned from the window. He comes recommended by the Harmon Group. He does. Kai said nothing else. He moved to the head of the long obsidian table and sat down. The investors filed in. 6 men and 1 woman. All Western, all wearing the particular brand of confidence that comes from never having lost badly enough to learn caution. Leading them was Mr. Levin, a broad-shouldered American in his 50s whose handshake, Kai had been told, was famously aggressive. Levin smiled the moment he entered. Mr. Kai. Incredible space. Just incredible. Kai did not smile back. Please sit. Darius Cole settled into the translator's chair at the far end of the table, a position that made him technically peripheral, practically central. He was a composed man, mid-40s, with silver-streaked hair and an ease about him that could be read as professionalism. He adjusted his earpiece, opened his leather folder, and smiled pleasantly at no one in particular. The service staff entered through the far door. There were 3 of them: a young Korean man carrying a tray of mineral water, an older woman arranging the pastry station, and Nyla Carter, who carried the wine menu and the quiet, practiced stillness of someone who had learned to be furniture. She wore her black hair pinned back beneath a white cap. Her uniform was pristine. She moved to the sideboard along the east wall and began setting up the service station with the methodical focus of someone performing a task they had done 10,000 times. She had not done it 10,000 times. She had been working at the Hansung Tower Hospitality Division for 11 weeks. Before that, for 3 months at a restaurant in Itaewon. Before that, 2 months at a language school where she had tutored executives in business Mandarin. And before all of that, Nyla Carter had been the youngest lead negotiation strategist at a firm called Meridian Consulting, advising Fortune 500 companies on cross-border acquisition deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. She had spoken 4 languages fluently, dressed in tailored suits, and sat at tables exactly like this one, not beside them. That was before Titan Global. But she didn't let herself think about that yet. Not now. Now she was watching the translator. The negotiation opened formally. Introductions, pleasantries, the particular choreography of men who do not trust each other pretending otherwise. Levin's team laid out their proposed terms for a joint infrastructure venture across 3 Southeast Asian corridors. Kai's team listened. Darius Cole translated in both directions with fluid, practiced ease. Nyla was refilling the water glasses at the near end of the table when she heard it. The first one was small. Almost nothing. Levin said the liability cap was 15 million USD. Darius translated it to Kai's Korean associate as 12 million. A $3 million difference. Gone in a single syllable swap, natural as breathing. Nyla's hand did not stop moving. She set the water pitcher down and moved back to the sideboard. She told herself she had misheard. Her Korean, while functional, was not perfect in a room with this kind of ambient murmur. She positioned herself more carefully by the wall and listened. The second discrepancy came 9 minutes later. Levin's attorney read a clause about arbitration jurisdiction, standard language specifying Seoul as the primary arbitration seat. Darius translated it to specify Singapore. A different legal framework. Massively different implications for any future dispute. Nyla felt the back of her neck grow warm. She watched Kai. His expression hadn't changed. It almost never changed. She had learned in 11 weeks of observing this floor. But there was something. A fractional tension in the set of his jaw. An almost imperceptible narrowing of his eyes when he looked at his associate's notes. He knew something was misaligned. He didn't know where the leak was. Nyla had spent her career reading rooms. Not the furniture, not the lighting, the human architecture, the angles of bodies, the timing of silences, the particular quality of confidence that is performance versus the confidence that comes from actually holding better cards. Levin's team was relaxed in the way that people are relaxed when they believe the other party is being fed altered information. She had seen it before. That specific, satisfied ease, the ease of a man who has already won and is simply waiting for the other man to finish losing. Darius Cole sat with his leather folder open, his pen moving occasionally, his face a mask of professional neutrality. But his right thumb was moving in a small, repetitive circle against the edge of the folder. Nyla recognized that tell. She had cataloged tells for a decade. That was a man managing anxiety, not the normal anxiety of a high-pressure room, but the contained anxiety of deception. She breathed slowly. Her father had said, "The truth has a texture. Lies always feel smooth at first. That's how you find them." She had been 7 years old. He had been explaining why he'd noticed a contractor was padding invoices on a community project. Her father, Emmanuel Carter, structural engineer, man of absolute and occasionally inconvenient principle, had reported the contractor, lost the working relationship, and never regretted it. Integrity, he told her, is the foundation that never collapses. He had died 18 months ago, before she could tell him that she was still standing. Barely, but standing. Nyla folded a linen napkin twice and thought about what she was considering doing. If she intervened, she would draw attention to herself. She would be asked questions. Her name would go into records. The wrong people, the very specific wrong people who had dismantled her life 2 years ago and didn't know she was in Seoul, might start paying attention again. Or she could say nothing. Refill the glasses. Collect the tip. Go home. She looked at Darius Cole, who was translating another clause now, calmly and incorrectly, while a man who didn't know he was being robbed stared at his notes trying to find the source of his unease. She thought about her father's firm. 14 years of work. gone in a single falsified audit commissioned by Titan Global to clear a path for their own infrastructure bid. Her father hadn't died from that. He'd died of a heart attack. But she had watched him read that audit report, watched something go out in his eyes that never came back. She picked up the bottle of 2014 Chateau Pichon Baron. It was not yet time for wine. But Kai Min-Jae's glass was technically empty, and service required attentiveness, and attentiveness required proximity. She crossed the room. She moved the way she had always moved in high-stakes rooms, unhurried. Invisible, she reached Kai's position at the head of the table and leaned slightly to fill his glass, the angle of her body creating a brief, natural acoustic pocket between them. She did not look at him. She spoke at a level just above silence. In Korean, her accent imperfect, but the words chosen precisely. The translator altered the liability cap. 12, not 15. And the arbitration seat. He said Singapore. The contract said Seoul. She straightened, stepped back, and returned to the sideboard. She did not know if he had heard. She did not look to check. She busied herself with the wine list, her hands completely still, her pulse anywhere but still. Kai Min-Jae did not react. Not visibly. He lifted his wine glass. He did not drink from it, and set it back down. He looked at Darius Cole for exactly 2 seconds, then returned his gaze to the table. The negotiation continued. For 4 minutes, nothing happened. Nyla began to think she had made a catastrophic mistake, that he hadn't heard, or hadn't believed, or had decided she was a delusional waitress projecting expertise she didn't have. She thought about what would happen to her job. She thought about whether the Hansung Group would involve the police if a member of their service staff interfered with a private business meeting. Then Kai Min-Jae said, "Mr. Cole." The room shifted. Not dramatically, just a degree or two of tilt, the way a room always shifts when the most powerful person in it decides to use their power out loud. Darius looked up. "Sir, read back the arbitration clause. The original English, and your Korean translation. Word for word." A pause. A half-second pause that lasted forever. Of course. Darius looked at his folder. He began to read. "Disputes arising under this agreement shall be subject to arbitration seated in." He stopped. Kai's voice was still quiet. "Seated in Seoul. And what did you translate it as 31 minutes ago?" The temperature in the room dropped. Levin shifted forward. His attorney put his pen down. The investors, who had been relaxed in the particular way of people holding better cards, suddenly stopped being relaxed. Darius Cole said, "I may have misspoken. Translating live is 12 or 15. The translator went still. "The liability cap," Kai said. Mr. Levin's attorney stated 15 million. "You translated 12. Would you like to explain the arithmetic?" No one in the room said anything. The silence was not empty. It was structured, load-bearing silence, the kind that holds everything else up. Levin turned very slowly toward his own attorney. "I'd like to see your notes," Kai said to Darius, with the same quiet tone a man uses when he already knows exactly what he's going to find and is simply observing the formality of discovery. Darius Cole closed his leather folder. It was the wrong move. Everyone knew it was the wrong move. "Put the contract down, Mr. Cole." What followed was not loud. Kai Min-Jae's particular genius, and it was a genius, Nyla would understand later, was that he never had to be loud. He was a man who had built an empire in spaces where noise was weakness, where the controlled voice of absolute certainty outranked any raised one. He walked Darius Cole through each discrepancy with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a man who had nothing to prove by rushing. The translator's cover story collapsed incrementally, each explanation more implausible than the last, until there was nothing left to say and Darius simply stopped talking. The investors were shocked in the way that powerful people are shocked when the game they thought they were playing is revealed as something different. Levin tried twice to redirect, suggesting it was a clerical error, suggesting perhaps they take a short break. And each time Kai's response was so measured, so complete, so utterly unbothered, that Levin simply stopped trying. The meeting ended without a signed agreement. Darius Cole left with 2 of Kai's security staff and without his leather folder. The investors filed out in the particular silence of men recalculating. Nyla was packing up the service station when she heard footsteps stop behind her. "Stay," said a voice. She turned. June, Kai's chief of staff, stood a few feet away. His expression was not hostile. It was evaluative. "Mr. Kai would like a word." The private office behind the Orchid Sky suite was smaller than she'd expected, a room that prized function over performance. A single desk, 2 chairs, a window, a painting on the wall of what appeared to be a traditional Korean mountain landscape rendered in abstract brushstrokes. Nothing else. Kai was standing when she entered. He had removed his jacket. He looked younger without it, which meant only that the jacket had done additional work. He studied her for a moment. "Sit down." She sat. He remained standing. "Who are you?" "Nyla Carter. I work hospitality services for the Hansung." "Who are you?" She understood the distinction. She took a breath. "I was a corporate negotiation strategist. I worked primarily in cross-border acquisition deals. For languages, English, French, Mandarin, and functional Korean. I spent 7 years in the field before my career was terminated." He said nothing, waiting. 2 years ago, Titan Global commissioned a false audit of a competitor bid I was advising on. The audit implicated me in a data breach that never happened. My firm let me go before the investigation concluded. By the time I was cleared, quietly, internally, no public statement, the damage was done. No one in the industry would touch me. She looked at him steadily. "I came to Seoul because I speak enough Korean to rebuild quietly, and because the people who destroyed my career don't know I'm here." Kai moved to the chair across from her and sat. "Darius Cole. He works for Titan Global." Covertly, I recognize the translation errors as deliberate, not mistakes, methodology. Same methodology I've seen in depositions from sabotage negotiations. Small, compound discrepancies. None individually provable. Cumulatively catastrophic. Titan Global. Kai said again, and the name sounded different in his mouth. Not new information, but a confirmed pattern. "They've been targeting your deals." "For 14 months. He was quiet for a moment. "I lost a Jakarta corridor negotiation in March. A Singapore maritime contract in July. I suspected interference, but couldn't locate the mechanism." "The mechanism is always the translator," Nyla said, "or the interpreter of due diligence reports. Someone trusted with language, trusted to be accurate. Who isn't?" He looked at her with the expression of a man resorting what he knows. Not surprised by her knowledge. Recalibrating what it means that she has it. "Victor Chan," she said quietly. "That's who runs their covert operation. He has a division, no official name, operates through third-party contractors. He was the one who authorized the audit that destroyed my reputation. And before that, he authorized the same kind of audit against my father's engineering firm." Something shifted in Kai's face. It was minor. She would have missed it if she hadn't been watching with the full capacity of 7 years of professional attention. "Emmanuel Carter," she said. "Structural engineering. He had a contract for a bridge project in Malaysia. Titan Global wanted the project. The audit was a demolition tool. My father's firm didn't survive it." She paused. "He didn't survive much longer after that." Silence. Outside the window, Seoul's skyline went on existing, completely indifferent to any of this. Min-Jae said, "What do you want?" It was the most honest question she had been asked in 2 years. She thought about it, not because she didn't know the answer, but because she wanted to give it to him exactly. "I want to work. I want to do the thing I'm good at, legally, and I want to do it in a position where Titan Global cannot reach me." And eventually, she held his gaze. I want them to answer for what they did. He was quiet for a long moment. Victor Chan has been 3 steps ahead of me for over a year, he said finally. I need someone who understands how he operates, who has seen his methodology from the inside. He set his hands on the desk, calm and precise. I need a head of international negotiations and intelligence. She said, I know. He almost smiled. Almost. The role would require significant travel, complete discretion, and an understanding that my business operates in spaces that are not always comfortable for someone with your background in corporate law. I spent 7 years in corporate law, Nyla said. I know what comfortable costs. Now, here is where we need to pause for a moment, because this is exactly the kind of moment the story turns on. Nyla Carter is sitting across from a man who is brilliant, powerful, dangerous, and offering her everything she needs. And the question is simple. Do you take it? Imagine you're the main character in today's story. You've lost everything because someone powerful decided you were inconvenient. You've spent 2 years invisible, rebuilding in silence. And now the door is open, but the man holding it open runs an empire that doesn't operate within the lines you built your integrity around. What do you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. We want to know, if you were in Nyla's shoes, what would you do differently? And if this story is already getting under your skin the way we hoped, hit that like button. It genuinely helps us keep bringing stories like this one to life. She accepted. She told herself it was strategy, that operating within Kai's network would give her access to the intelligence she needed to build a real case against Victor Chan and Titan Global. That was true. It was also true that she was exhausted of surviving and ready, finally, to do something else. The paperwork took 3 days. Kai's legal team was thorough and absolutely without sentiment about it. She moved from her small apartment in Mapogu to a company residence in Gangnam, a place with actual windows and a kitchen that had more than 2 functional burners. She bought suits again, 3 of them. She had forgotten how it felt to stand in a fitting room and exist as someone who had somewhere to be. Her first briefing with Kai's intelligence analyst, a wiry woman named Park Soo-yeon, who communicated primarily in bullet points and skepticism, lasted 4 hours. By the end of it, Soo-yeon had stopped being skeptical. You caught the Singapore clause, Soo-yeon said, reviewing the timeline. 22 minutes into the negotiation, Soo-yeon made a sound that was not quite a compliment, but was in that direction. Her second briefing was with Kai himself. It lasted 40 minutes and was conducted almost entirely without small talk. He laid out the structure of Titan Global's interference campaign with a precision that told her he had been building this picture for longer than 14 months. He had simply been missing the brushstrokes that explained it. She filled in 3 of them from her own experience. He added 2 more from files his team had recovered from Darius Cole's folder. Cole won't talk, Soo-yeon said on day 2. Victor Chan will cut his losses before Cole says anything useful. He doesn't need to talk, Nyla said. The folder is enough, if you know what you're looking at. She spent the next 6 days with the folder. She found 4 other Titan Global Link translators and interpreters embedded in Kai's extended network of business contacts. 2 were active. She flagged them before they could do damage. Kai, when she presented her findings, looked at the report for 90 seconds and then said, "Good." In his language, she was learning. That was enthusiastic praise. There was a moment, about 3 weeks in, that she hadn't expected. She was working late in the intelligence office, a room she had commandeered on the 38th floor, 2 levels below the Orchid Sky Suite. And June appeared in the doorway with 2 paper cups of vending machine coffee and an expression of mild, reluctant sympathy. "Mr. Kai says you need to go home," June said. "Mr. Kai can," she caught herself. "Please tell Mr. Kai I'll be done in an hour." June set one of the cups on her desk. "He said you'd say that." He also said, He paused with the expression of a man delivering a message he found personally unreasonable. To tell you that a foundation doesn't collapse faster because you watch it. She stared at him. I'm just repeating it, June said, with genuine and heartfelt non-involvement. She didn't know how Kai had heard about what her father used to say. She didn't ask. She drank the terrible vending machine coffee and went home at a reasonable hour, and in the morning she came back and finished the report. The coffee, for the record, was genuinely terrible. Whatever the vending machine believed it was producing, coffee was not the answer. This was, she decided, the one legitimate grievance she had with the entire operation. 6 weeks after she joined, they identified the mechanism through which Victor Chan was receiving advance information on Kai's upcoming deals. It was not glamorous. It was a data aggregation firm in Amsterdam that was technically independent and factually not. The Amsterdam connection took 2 more weeks to document. And then they had enough. Nyla put the file together herself, at Soo-Yun's shoulder, over a very long Thursday. The file went through channels Kai's legal team navigated carefully and deniably, to a financial crimes division that had been building a parallel case against Titan Global for 18 months. The Amsterdam link was the piece they were missing. Victor Chan was placed under formal investigation 11 days later. Nyla found out on a Tuesday morning, reading the international financial news. She was in her office with a real cup of coffee. She had bought a machine, she had priorities, and she read the headline twice, and then sat very still for a while. She did not cry. She had cried once about Titan Global, the night after her firm let her go, in a hotel room in Chicago, comprehensively and without reservation. She had decided then that she was allowed that one time and that afterward she was going to do other things. She did other things. The 6 months passed the way good time passes, faster than expected, fuller than anticipated. She renegotiated a joint manufacturing agreement with 3 European partners that Kai's previous team had left structurally unbalanced. She identified and neutralized 2 more Titan global interference attempts, one in Tokyo, one in Busan, before they reached negotiation stage. She built a verification protocol for all external translators and interpreters that Soo-Yun converted into a system, and that became, within 4 months, standard across the entire organization. She traveled. She worked. She stopped flinching every time someone asked her name. She also, and this surprised her, stopped being invisible. Not loudly, not dramatically. She did not become someone who took up excessive space. But she stopped making herself small, stopped flattening her competence to make other people comfortable, stopped apologizing for the fact that she was right about things. It turned out that being right was significantly more useful when you let people know you were doing it. The negotiation in the Jinhee Tower was scheduled for a Thursday. It was a maritime logistics deal, 6 partners across 4 countries, a contract structure that was genuinely complicated and which had stalled twice before under previous negotiators. Nyla had been prepping for 12 days. Soo-Yun had stress-tested every clause. The verified translators were confirmed. The documentation trail was airtight. She stood outside the conference room in a charcoal suit that fit exactly as it should, with a briefcase that contained the most comprehensively prepared negotiation file she had ever assembled, and she thought about her father for a moment. Not sadly, just clearly, the way you think about someone who has become part of how you see. Then she walked in. She commanded the room in the way that she had always been able to command rooms, before she forgot she could. Clean, direct, with the particular authority of someone who knows the material so thoroughly that they have room left over to watch the room at the same time. The deal was complex. It hit several friction points in the 3rd hour that would have derailed a less prepared negotiator. She navigated each one without raising her voice. It closed, signed, by every party, at 4:47 in the afternoon. She shook hands. She was composed and professional, And the moment the last investor left, she sat down in an empty chair and allowed herself exactly 30 seconds of silent, private, absolute relief. Then she stood up, collected her file, and went to the elevator. The lobby of the Ginny Tower was all glass and ambient light. She had the briefcase over her shoulder and was reaching for her phone when she became aware of someone standing near the far pillar. Min-Jae was leaning against the wall with his arms crossed and his jacket perfectly in place and the dragon tattoo doing its work. He looked like a man who had nothing in particular to be here for, which meant he had been here very specifically. She walked over. "I told you not to come," she said. "You told June not to come," Kai said. "I make my own scheduling decisions." The deal closed. "I know." Soo-Yun sent the signature confirmation 20 minutes ago. He was quiet for a moment, looking at her with the expression she had come to recognize as his version of open, which for other people would have been completely neutral, but for Kai was practically transparent. How was it? She thought about the third-hour friction points. She thought about the moment the last signature landed. She thought about 12 days of preparation and 7 years of expertise that had never actually left her, that had just been waiting for a room that wasn't trying to erase her. "It was like breathing," she said. He nodded, slowly once. That was all. They stood in the lobby of the Ginny Tower while Seoul went about its business outside the glass, and it was enough. There is a particular kind of ending that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with music or slow motion or a single tear in the golden light. It comes on a Tuesday or a Thursday or in a lobby when you realize you are no longer surviving something, that at some point in the recent past, without ceremony, you simply stopped. Nyla Carter had walked into a room to serve wine and come out the other side of her own story. She had not done it by becoming someone else. She had not found shortcuts or compromises or convenient moral accommodations. She had done it because her father's foundation held, because the thing he had built in her, the absolute refusal to look away from the truth when the truth needed someone to look at it, was more structurally sound than any of the damage done to her. Victor Chan was facing investigation. Titan Global's covert operation was unraveling. Darius Cole had become irrelevant to everyone. And Nyla Carter was standing in a lobby in Seoul with a closed deal and a real future and a cup of good coffee waiting for her back at the office. Not everything collapses. Some foundations hold. You just watched Nyla go from invisible to unstoppable, not by luck, not by accident, but by refusing to become what her enemies needed her to be, silent. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or pushed to the margins by people who needed you to disappear, this one's for you. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a like if Nyla's journey moved you. And remember, the people who try to write you out of your own story have never actually met someone who knows their own foundation. We'll see you in the next one.